All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Megan Stanfill. I'm the executive director of the Alliance for Historic Wyoming, and I'm really glad to have everyone here tonight for our final event of Historic Preservation Month. It's been a month full of celebrations, events, ribbon cuttings, and I think this is a really great way to wrap everything up. If you're not following along with our e-newsletter, go to our website and sign up for it. Um, and I'm just gonna hand it over to Katie with WYSHPO.
Hi, I'm so happy to see everyone here from all over Wyoming. My name is Katie, and I am the new Certified Local Government Coordinator with the Wyoming State Historic Preservation Office, which is quite the mouthful. So today I will be presenting on the National Register of Historic Places, and let me just get that set up for you all. Okay. There we go. Hopefully you can all see that. So yes, it's going to be a bit of a background on the National Register of Historic Places, and then also talking about some of the different certified local governments, CLGs, throughout the state, and the various nominations that they've done. About the past year is the time period that I decided to go with. So let's begin. To start, what is the National Register or National Register of Historic Places? It is the official list of the nation's historic places worthy of preservation, according to the NPS itself. And it was authorized by the Historic Preservation Act of 1966, so it's been around for a fair while. It is administered by the National Park Service, NPS, on a federal level, and then it is up to the state historic preservation offices of each state to manage it further. And the goal of the NRHP is to promote and increase the understanding and appreciation for heritage sites and historic properties. Alrighty. And then some quick stats on National Register sites. As of 2020, there are more than 96,000 properties listed on the register. And currently in Wyoming, there are 571 listings, and every county has at least 5 listings. And when the register first started in 1966, there were 11 sites that were grandfathered in. Before this, they were all designated as National Historic Landmarks. And Wyoming's kind of always been on the forefront of these various official nominations, whether it comes to national parks or National Register nominations. And for a few of these original sites, let's see, it's Tom Sun Ranch, South Pass, Fort Laramie National Historic Site, Fort Phil Kearny and Associated Sites, Independence Rock, Horner Site, Wapiti Ranger Station, Swanland and Cattle Company Headquarters, the Oregon Trail Ruts, Sheridan Inn, and Upper Green River Rendezvous Site. So there's a fair amount of diversity just to start in Wyoming. Okay. And a little bit more about the NRHP. NRHP sites can be eligible for federal preservation tax credits and National Park Service grant programs. Listing on the NRHP is an official way to acknowledge the significance of the property, and a listing can increase heritage tourism as well as local awareness and appreciation for the site. And there are some misconceptions about the way that the National Register works, and so I just want to address the way that it works, at least in Wyoming, because listing on the NRHP does not restrict the rights of private property owners, stop any alterations to the property, place constraints on the property, require constant consultation with WYSHPO, make the property difficult to sell or raise the property tax, regulate the appearance of the property, require that the public has access to the property, or protect the property from any actions taken by government agencies. Other states and even individual local governments throughout the state of Wyoming can have different ways that they treat NRHP sites. It's all down to what's written in law. And in Wyoming, at least as a whole in the states, there are not restrictions placed on NRHP sites. It's really an honorary designation. Okay. Oh, and I forgot to say, with all this technical stuff, as you come up with questions at the end, I'll have time to answer those questions. So just keep them in mind, and hopefully I'll be able to get to all of your questions at the end. All right. And now for the National Register criteria. There are 4 main criteria. And those are properties that are associated with events that have made significant contribution to the broad patterns of our history, or properties that are associated with the lives of significant persons in our past, or that embody the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction that represent the work of a master, artistic values, or significant distinguishable entity whose components may lack individual distinction, or that have yielded or may be likely to yield information important to history or prehistory. To really oversimplify, A is a historic event associated with a historic event. B is associated with a significant individual or group. C is it's architecturally significant, and D is it could be or is archaeologically significant. Again, that's very oversimplified, but hopefully that'll get the gist across. Alrighty. And then, oh, I guess I didn't put it on the last slide, but just a couple other notes real fast. Generally, to be listed, a site has to be 50 years or older, but there are exceptions. And then there are other sub-criteria that have to do with religious sites or birth and grave sites of historic figures. So again, there's more nuance than how I've simplified it here, but this is the main points. And then more exciting is we get to the National Register nominations listed in 2023 and then some in or 2022 and then some in early 2023. And here's just a map of the various sites throughout Wyoming. And this includes the Weston House, the bridge over Snake River, the First Congregational Church, the Stone House, Gillette Downtown Historic District, and the Old Douglas Armory. And I know there are some folks from the CLGs who nominated these sites. So as I talk about them, if you'd like at the end to just pipe in and tell everyone more about your experiences nominating, that would be amazing, or any interesting history that you'd like to share. But let's start talking about the individual listings. To begin, we have the Old Douglas Armory, which was listed by the Douglas Historic Preservation Commission. And it is located on 400 West Center Street, Douglas, Wyoming, 82633. The Old Douglas Armory was built in 3 phases between 1931 and 1951 and was added to the National Register on March 28th, 2022. The Armory meets criterion A of the National Register because of its contribution to military history in the state of Wyoming and Douglas. Let's see. And the Armory was completed in 3 stages. Construction began in 1931 and used funds provided by the Hoover Administration Economic Relief Program. Construction resumed in 1937 with the assistance from the Works Progress Administration, WPA. The Armory was completed in 1951. The Old Douglas Armory was used continually by the Wyoming Army National Guard until they moved to a new facility in 1993. The Wyoming Army National Guard has a long history in Wyoming and has existed in the state since before it achieved statehood. The Wyoming Guard deployed units out of the Douglas Armory to nearly every major military event that occurred during its period of significance. So a lot of contribution to military history in Wyoming. And let's see, it's gonna work with me? No. Further to talk about the physical characteristics of the building, it is a large rectangular building unadorned by decoration, and they found that it is an example of something called stripped classicism. The Old Douglas Armory was in use continually until 1933, like I mentioned earlier. And Currently, I always like seeing how buildings are in use now, if there's able to be a rehabilitative use of it. It is owned by the Wyoming State Fair Board and is used for commercial purposes, storage, and projects relating to the state fair. All right, and so we're going to move on to our next site. Oh, I went too fast. Here we go. The bridge over Snake River. And this is an interesting one since it's not just a building like one might think on the National Register, but there are lots of different types of sites and structures that can be listed on the register. And here is an example of a bridge, the bridge over Snake River, which was listed by the Teton County Historic Preservation Commission. And it's located County Road 11, 7.5 miles south of Jackson, Wyoming. It was built in 1960 and added to the National Register of Historic Places on August 5th, 2022. And it meets criterion C of the National Register as a significant structure. Its period of historical significance was from 1960, when the bridge was constructed at its current location, to the year 1972, when the bridge had been in place for 50 years. So I'm assuming 50 years from the listing date. The bridge over Snake River, it says structure DEY, I believe in the picture, embodies the distinctive characteristics of a certain type of method or construction. That's criterion C. And it is a 3-span pin-connected Pratt through truss bridge, and is the only example of such a type of bridge remaining in the Wyoming County and State Road system, I think throughout all of Wyoming as well. It appears to retain nearly all of its character-defining features, and that includes the truss form, method of construction, top and bottom chords, vertical and diagonal members, floor beams, and stringers. For through trusses, the lateral top bracing features of the portal, including struts and bracing, are also character defining. All right. And then the bridge was slated for demolition or relocation, which was part of the reason for its nomination. Here we go. And the bridge over Snake River was built again in 1960 using spans retained from 1915 bridges that this bridge replaced, and was constructed by Charles M. Smith of Thermopolis. The first bridge built at this location, the current location of the bridge over Snake River, was a swinging bridge built in 1938. In 1960, the current bridge was built just downstream. The pin-connected construction allowed the bridge to be moved when the Squaw Creek landslide forced State Highway 22 to be rerouted west in 1966. All right. And we'll move on to the next nomination, the Stone House. And this was nominated by the Sheridan County Historic Preservation Commission. And it is located in Wyoming, and I believe it is a residence at this point, so we didn't want to talk too much about the exact address. The Stone House was built in 1898 and added to the National Register of Historic Places November 4th, 2022. And it meets 2 criterion, A and C of the National Register. It is locally significant under criterion A because it contributes to the social history of Sheridan County, as well as the development of homesteading and ranching in Wyoming during the early 20th century. And it also shows the impacts that the Homestead Act of 1862 had on the state. And then it is further significant under criterion C because it is a uncommonly well-maintained property. It is situated in a rural, undeveloped area, which contributes to the property's excellent integrity. And it's had some additional agricultural buildings, but it maintains integrity of setting, location, feeling, and association because the surrounding rangeland has been preserved. It has also not been significantly altered, and the workmanship and materials have been maintained as well. All right. The Stone House is a 4-square classical revival style home built by John P. Patton and William Betheran in 1898. The land around the home was used as rangeland and continues that use today. After a number of owners and a foreclosure, Walt and Mary Peters acquired the house in 1921. During Prohibition, Walt became a bootlegger, and the root cellar of the stone house was modified to be a distillery and speakeasy. And then the stills from the Stonehouse Speakeasy are currently displayed in a local distillery in Sheridan, and I couldn't find which distillery, so if someone knows, that would be a great thing to find out, since I'd love to see them at some point. And then Walt and Mary operated the ranch until Walt passed away in 1973. So over 50 years of the same family working the land and being in the area. And yeah, this is an interesting case of both the architecture and the history and people being significant to the community. And it's, yeah, very cool structure. And now we're going to be moving on to a historic district, the Gillette Downtown Historic District. And it's again different. It features many more buildings in its district. The oldest building was constructed in 1898, and the most recent contributing structure was added in 1971. And it was added to the register as a historic district on January 3rd, 2023. And then this one is a bit lengthier, given the background of, well, the kind of the development of Gillette that goes along with it. It meets criterion A and C of the National Register, similar to the stone house that we just talked about. It is under criterion A, it is associated with events that have contributed to broad historical patterns, given its significance to Gillette from 1898 to 1971. And the district represents the commercial heart of a major northeastern Wyoming city, Gillette, a railroad town created with the arrival of the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad in 1891. It became the county seat when Campbell County was created, and that was in 1911. It's also strategically located on the route of the Black and Yellow Trail, one of America's first transcontinental highways that ran from Chicago, Illinois to Yellowstone National Park. From its humble origins as one of the many late 19th century railroad stations, it grew into a modern city with a diversified economy that serves as a regional ranching, coal mining, and oil and gas industry community. And then despite the town's local boom and bust periods, often depended on coal production as well as the general economy, Gillette's growth was steady. The number of buildings that were constructed in the commercial district were almost evenly spread across the decades from the 1890s to the 1970s. And then it is further being nominated under criterion C because the buildings of the district represent a wide variety of architectural styles and influences, including late Victorian Italianate commercial buildings, residential Victorian architecture with Queen Anne elements, Art Deco, Classical Revival, and many more. The buildings of the district reflect several identifiable building periods in the town's history and also feature the use of several different building materials, including brick, concrete block, and ornamental concrete blocks. All right. And further talking about the historic district, there are 30 contributing structures in the 7 blocks along South Gillette Avenue that make up the boundaries of the National Historic District. And it was, again, Gillette was founded in 1891, and then the first business established in 1891 was a general store run by the Daly brothers, or Daly. George Daly also owned a saloon called the Buffalo Hump that was raised in 1911 to make way for the Montgomery Bar and Hotel, which has been operating to this day. The first post office was also established in 1891, and then the first standalone post office in 1907 at 118 South Gillette Avenue, but this building was badly damaged by a fire in the 1960s. And then the first Gillette City Hall was built at 219 South Gillette Avenue in 1898 and was used until 1936 when a new City Hall was built at 400 South Gillette Avenue. And as it is the downtown historic district, it still has significant, still very significant to Gillette to this day. And there are over 100 businesses in downtown Gillette, with many of those located within the boundaries of the historic district. These businesses include restaurants, bakeries, ice cream parlors, secondhand shops, boutiques, banks, hairdressers, shoe stores, and frame shops, and more. There are also Campbell County municipal buildings, churches, law and insurance offices, and these are all found within the boundaries of this historic district. A number of events also take place along the avenue. There's a Second Saturday Brunch Club, Brewery Comedy Club, and then one-time events like the ribbon cutting to celebrate downtown, which I'll talk about in a moment. And Gillette is further working to make its downtown a gathering place and hub for events like concerts in the future. So we'll continue to see more of the historic district contributing to Gillette and its culture as a whole. Now to talk about the Downtown Historic District ribbon cutting. To celebrate the successful nomination, the Gillette Historic Preservation Commission held a ribbon cutting event that took place on May 1st, 2023. There were over 30 people in attendance, including the mayor of Gillette, Gillette Historic Preservation Commission members, representatives from the Alliance for Historic Wyoming, and WYSHPO and Gillette Main Street. The event celebrated the history of Gillette's development, as well as looking forward to the role buildings and businesses along the street would play in Gillette's future. It was a very cool event. It was nice to be a part of it, and it's exciting to see all these nominations that are really celebrating history throughout Wyoming. Okay, but we still have a couple more to look at. The next is in Sheridan, the First Congregational Church, which was nominated by the Sheridan County Historic Preservation Commission. It was built 1912 and added to the National Register of Historic Places on January 3rd, 2023. It is significant under Criterion C of the National Register and is an excellent example of early 20th century Gothic Revival style church in a picturesque mode. And let's see. Oh yeah, so it displays many features of the Gothic Revival style, while also reflecting changes in the liturgy and religious practices in Protestant churches starting in the late 19th century. The church is one of 3 churches within a block of each other built in the early 20th century and is the only Gothic Revival style church of its kind in Cheyenne. And in Sheridan in 1881, the Sheridan Congregational Church Community was founded prior to the official incorporation of the town. And in 1884, the church was organized in Sheridan. As Sheridan grew as a town, so did the congregation of the church, and soon a larger building was needed to accommodate them. The new church could house up to 700 people, and it continues to house the First Congregational Church of Christ. There have been many community uses of the building, including as the only gymnasium in Sheridan for years. Since 1994, the congregation has worked with 11 other churches in the community to give out free meals during the week, and they have now served over 300,000 meals. Women's and men's groups, alongside Boy Scout troops and Campfire Girl troops, have historically met in the church as well. All right. And, oh, I'm going too fast again. Here we go. The last feature that we have today is the Henry and Estella Weston House, which was nominated by the Teton County Historic Preservation Commission. It is located at 165 East Broadway, Jackson, Wyoming. The Henry and Estella Weston House was built in 1936 and added to the NRHP January 3rd, 2023. The Weston House meets criteria A of the Historic Register because it is a well-preserved example of a typical residential structure built in Jackson Hole in the 1930s. And it is also very well preserved. It highlights the residential origins and history of the downtown Jackson area in what is now decidedly a commercial part of town. And through its massing, design, materials, setback, and overall integrity, it offers a glimpse into local history building and settlement patterns in the early decades of the 20th century. The house was constructed in 1936 by community leaders Harry and Stella Weston. And again, it's significant because of the growth of Jackson. And it is also, apparently it sits on one of the last lots in downtown Jackson to have avoided major redevelopment and infill, which we can consider a success to be sure. A little more about the house. It is a rectangular cabin with half log siding made from peeled lodgepole pine. The cabin was built in 1936 as a home for Stella and Harry Weston, who lived there until their deaths in 1989 and 1990, respectively. Stella was very involved in the Jackson community. She was a member of the Gray Ladies who volunteered at St. John's Hospital during World War II and worked as a nurse's aide at the hospital. She helped start the local Girl Scouts troop. She served on the Teton County School Board and was an original member of the Teton County Library Board. Harry was also a very significant community member. He served as a volunteer firefighter and on the Jackson Town Council. He was a member of the Rotary Club, a Shriner, and a Mason. He also served on the Grand Teton National Park Natural History Association for 52 years. So even though this wasn't part of the importance that made it nominated, it was the actual architecture of the home, I think they're pretty significant to local history as well. And now for what it is today. The Henry and Stella Weston House now houses the Healthy Being Cafe, Juicery, and Wellbeing Market. The cafe opened in 2013 and is open daily from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And their menu includes a variety of healthy foods from granola bowls to cold-pressed juices and coffee drinks. It is a very interesting example of adaptive reuse, which we've seen with a couple other buildings today, where a historic building is used for a different purpose, often as a local business. And that is the last example of NRHP nominations by CLGs in the last year or so. Finally, thank you so much for listening. And Bethany Kelly, she's not here tonight, but she is the person who does the NRHP nominations for at least through the ones that go through the State Historic Preservation Office. And so she is a great contact if you'd like to know more. Feel free to reach out to me as well, though, if you have any questions. And now I think we have a good amount of time. I can open this up to any questions or comments that you all might have. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then there's a little, you can raise your hand if you go to, let's see. I don't know if you want to let them know, Megan. It's at the very bottom of the screen. There we go.
I got myself unmuted, but we do
there
have
you
a
go.
question.
Oh yeah.
What kind of assistance can you provide to assist local CLGs with NRHP nominations?
Yes. So we do write NRHP nominations. There just is a bit of a backlog of them. So there tends to be a lot of other people ahead. But that's one of the things that Bethany does is actually help write these nominations. It just tends to take, I think at this point, it's about 2 years to get the nomination back from us. But we can provide other assistance, whether that be helping you start the process. And that's one of hopefully future presentations that I can go on is what it takes to start putting together some of the research for your nomination. And then also we can help provide funding if you'd like to hire someone to write the nominations. In Wyoming, it's the Rosenbergs, I believe, who are the most commonly hired. And that's one of the normal CLG grants that we give out is for NRHP nominations. And a future, again, presentation will hopefully be about applying for those grants. So yes, we can provide both funding and assistance when it comes to creating a new NRHP nomination.
The question we have is, this might be more of a question for Bethany, but I'm curious to hear more about the exceptions to the 50-year rule you mentioned. It often seems to be taken as gospel, but I'm curious what kind of exceptions you've seen before.
Yeah. So again, it really depends on the significance of the building, and it can depend a lot on, I guess, the general climate around the building as well, because it can take a bit more convincing, say, for your local governments to get behind the nomination if it's not 50 years old yet. Because yes, it is kind of taken as gospel, even though it is also, if we look at it objectively, a bit of an arbitrary number. It's just one that was chosen to be the historic mark. And so if buildings are very significant to the community, if there is a want to protect them and maybe raise them up a bit more, if it's not exactly 50 years, there are definitely places that have moved around that 50-year mark. It depends. I wouldn't say it's like super common, especially for national nominations, but if there are local and state level nominations, there can be more flexibility on the time. It depends. So it's kind of a vague answer, but
I
that's
think
been my experience.
the most common use of an exception
Mhm.
is for historic events
Yeah.
or historic people, like
Mhm.
modern history kind of thing. So it's less to do with architecture and more to do with events and people.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a great way to put it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think we had a message in here.
Oh yeah, feel free to also, if you want to type your messages in chat, you can also do that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
think I see a couple.
yeah. Oh, it was from Robert with the Gillette downtown historic district, and
Oh.
they did use the Rosenbergs for their nomination, and they're working now
Hmm.
for a few other of the non-contributing buildings
Hmm.
to get them to remove the modern facades and
Oh.
make them contributing again. So
Oh, that's great.
fantastic work to hear.
Oh, yes. And if you'd like to hear a little bit more about CLG news, I mean, I can save this till after the questions too, but I will be sending out to the CLG contacts a newsletter with updates on what's going on. And then even if you're not part of CLG, I will be putting together a blog with WordPress and then hopefully also linking that in the newsletter that can help keep you up to date on the historic preservation happenings in Wyoming.
Yeah. And you might want to do a little bit of what the CLG program is in case we have some people watch this
Oh
afterwards
yeah,
and don't know what that acronym means.
that's fair. I did just kind of dive into it. That's the hard thing, is all the acronyms, which
Yeah.
again, I'm hoping to put a little post about. But yeah, so basically, CLGs are a vital part of historic preservation. The certified part of them is really part of SHPO's responsibility is just keeping track of things. There are certain I guess certain rules in place to try to have us keep up with the various CLGs throughout Wyoming. And as long as these kind of guidelines are followed, then they're part of the certified status after at least the initial application. And this status gets you the ability to use the certified local government grants. And the SHPO office is funded partially through federal funds, and 10% of those federal funds have to go to certified local governments throughout the states, throughout the state. And each local government, so it tends to be either a commission or a board, and it's formed through, again, it's usually either the town or city or the county. And so they're actually kind of a commission through these official governmental organizations rather than just being a historic organization. So that differentiates them a little bit as well.
Awesome.
Eh,
Well, I don't see any more
And then,
questions coming
was there
in.
anything else in chat, or was that just?
I
Oh,
think,
perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, it was an exciting nomination to be sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Awesome.
again, I really appreciate everyone coming to listen to this. And we will be posting a recording. I believe it'll be through the Alliance. And yeah, just it was a really cool historic preservation month, and hopefully we can do more and more each year to celebrate historic preservation in Wyoming. And yeah, we kicked it off with a pretty cool official proclamation
Yep.
with the governor, which was, again, the Alliance has done so much, and it's just been wonderful to see the participation and excitement for historic preservation. And yeah, hope to just see more from everyone.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now.
All right, sounds good.